So yeah, what is it? Like, what is it in our lifestyle these days that's causing so much low back issue?
So there's many factors that are contributing to why people have so much lower back pain. One of the biggest ones is sedentary behaviors. So specifically, when people are sedentary, there's a correlation in both adults, adolescents, and children in lower back pain, according to some recent research. And specifically, when people are sedentary, it's going to cause atrophy of little muscles in the lower back that are active stabilized that are called multifidi. And specifically, when those muscles atrophy or shrink in size, what happens is something called fatty infiltration occurs, where fat goes in and replaces some of that muscle. And that's correlated with multiple causes of lower back pain, as well as spinal MRI findings, disc degeneration, all that. So that's one of our main focuses that we take with people in terms of trying to remedy their lower back pain, is working on bringing up the strength of those steep spinal stabilizers. Some other causes that we see, so there is an association between hip mobility and lower back pain. Specifically, there's a negative correlation between hip mobility and low back pain, meaning as hip mobility increases, lower back pain decreases, according to some recent research. So that also gets a little bit complicated, however, though, because sometimes when people have an excess of mobility, that can also cause low back pain. So something we see pretty commonly in an office is hypermobility, as we see especially in smaller, more flexible women, and they can have lower back pain for different reasons outside of mobilities, because they actually need more stability. And for patients like that, typically adjustments get taken down a little bit on the totem pole of importance, and that's where we employ a lot more exercise-based rehab to help sort of stabilize them.
Yeah, I have lots of questions. I want to go back to where you mentioned the process of fat coming in and replacing some of that muscle. That is or is not specifically in the low back, or it could be anywhere, right?
So the concept can exist in other areas besides the lower back. However, there's specific research showing that in people with lower back pain, this specifically occurs.
Yeah, and you're saying this is from high sedentary lifestyles. And is there a definition of like, because obviously sedentary just means like not moving very much, right? Sitting a lot, not walking, not exercising. But what would you call too sedentary or an okay amount?
So there's a lot of patients that are coming in that are literally getting 2,000 steps or less per day. I would consider that's
very low.
That pretty sedentary, who literally never exercise. That's what I'm referring to, or who just dramatically under exercise in general.
Yeah.
So maybe they do exercise occasionally, but they're not doing it on a consistent basis the way that we would want them to.
And what would that be? The consistent basis that you want them to? What does that look like?
So typically for someone who doesn't have serious athletic aspirations, I would want to see someone resistance training at least twice a week and doing some sort of cardiovascular exercise between 2 and 4 times a week.
Yeah, a lot of you guys' recommendations are very much in alignment with ours. So I love kind of everything you're saying, from the fact that you said what works for an athlete also works for a regular person. For whatever reason, people think that that's not the case. Humans are humans. Basic exercise, goes for everyone, right? Now, you do have some things, and you're an athlete, sure, you can do more load, more things, right? But the fundamentals of exercise applies to all people, of all shapes, all sizes, all genders, So I kind of love where this is going, and kind of all the stuff that you guys are saying. Is there anything for, let's say, like someone that was a former athlete? I feel like a lot of people that I hear that have aches, pains, that are currently in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, they always talk about, back in high school, this, college, that. Do you see a lot of that stuff?
Yes, I would say so. Like people who have previous trauma, especially, are potentially more likely to have pain in future. There's several reasons for that. One of those reasons is something called fascia, which is something that I focus on in particular. So a lot of the times when we have previous trauma, that can go ahead and make some changes within fascia. And the reason why fascia matters is because fascia has 10 times the amount of pain reception that muscles do themselves. And so what happens is when we get those fascial changes, that can kind of relay pain signals back to the brain, and that can cause movement restrictions, not just at the site of the original injury, but can also move up or down the chain.
Can you tell us what fascia is and why that gets messed up during an injury?
So fascia is a layer that exists between our muscles in our skin. So it's kind of like peeling the skin off of a chicken breast, so to speak. So an analogy I like is that our muscles are like the engine and fascia is like the transmission. So fascia is going to help to transmit the forces of the muscle.
And so whenever someone has an injury when they're in high school or whatever, and when that injury heals, the fascia is not as strong or as it once was. Is that accurate?
So what happens is sort of the fascia ends up thickening. So there's this fluid within the fascia called hyaluronin. And what happens is that can sort of thicken and clump together. And what that does is that causes a difficulty with the fascia gliding. And when the fascia can't glide properly, that's where we get the restrictions in range of motion as well as the pain signals being delivered back to the brain.
So if I have
like old transmission oil that gets kind of clumped up in the transmission and it's not letting it kind of slide.
It's like putting honey in the fridge.
it just hardens up.
Yeah.
So the goal is to kind of get it warmed up with whatever approach you're going to do. There's multiple ways to do that. But yeah, you're trying to essentially get that clunked up honey moving. So then you have glide, which will, like Dr. Adam said, improve range of motion, decrease pain signaling. I mean, it's pretty wild if somebody has an issue, like you could look like a wizard with just like 2 to 10 minutes of soft tissue work in the right area. And they're just almost immediately healed. Like it's pretty cool.